Post Malone is a culture vulture. I don't think that's something that's brand new though. Shawn C, and I'm back in here to give you another video. In light of everything that's been happening recently, Post Malone's Rockstar video just released last night. He had some very interesting comments to say in his DJ booth interview. And there's nothing wrong with having opinions and going against the grain and being someone who's different and having an opinion that isn't that popular. The worst thing that you can do though is group an entire genre of music and say, basically, if you're looking for something of substance, to not come over here. But that's a point I wanted to discuss a little bit later on. The first part about this video is why Post Malone is a culture vulture and why it's hypocritical for you to call Post Malone one and not call people like Kodak Black, 21 Savage, Lil Yachty, and Lil Uzi one. Point blank period, most people are mistaking cultural appropriation for being a culture vulture, which is why in Post Malone's case is used so much against him. I had more respect for Earl Sweatshirt when he came out against Post Malone a long time ago, basically saying, who let this guy in? Now, while I disagree with him and I don't believe that, you know, he should be limited based off of this color of his skin, because if you're gonna say that about him, you need to say that about every other artist who's not really contributing to the growth of hip-hop. Well, what is a vulture? Simply put, is a scavenger bird. It goes around looking for things to consume, things to collect, things to scavenge. Now imagine if that same scavenger was going through the culture and trying to sap different sounds of hip-hop or different sounds of pop and collect it and form it into its own thing. If you are a scavenger or a vulture, 9 times out of 10, you spend 0 time giving or contributing to anything, and you're not contributing anything to the genre that you're clearly a part of, you will be classified as a culture vulture. And when I say contribution, I don't mean contribution in delivering hit music or hit singles or hit songs. I mean contribution in the evolution of the genre that you're in. I can see a little bit more anger or a little bit more, mixed feelings on accepting someone like Post Malone into the culture because you feel like black people don't normally get that kind of recognition on a regular basis, and here comes this random guy with braids in his hair rapping about another black legend, calling himself the white version of him, when at the time he didn't have nearly as many accomplishments to even consider himself as that, and somehow the song immediately tops the charts. Now, the song is incredibly catchy. The song is great. I like Post Malone. I like his music. But objectively speaking here, I can see where there's anger. And a lot of people feel this way in regards to a lot of artists. You can look at Iggy Azalea and people feel the same way about her. She's a pop rapper. Another individual that's contributing nothing to the actual genre that she's in but constantly capitalizing off of it. Another reason you could probably come to this conclusion is because of Post Malone's constant hesitation in accepting the fact that he is a part of the rap game or a part of the pop rap culture. He said in various interviews, I'm not a rapper, I don't want to be considered, I don't want to be looked at like that. But you're making music that intentionally gravitates towards the sound of a genre that you're saying that you don't want to be a part of. You willingly do this, and you've accepted the fact that this is a part of what it is that you've been pushing. Even your Rockstar song is a hip-hop song. You have a hip-hop artist featured on that hip-hop song. You knew not to make Rockstar sound like a rock music anthem, because you knew that wasn't gonna fly. Again, there's no hate on that. Make great music, because I like Rockstar, but say it like it is. You might not want to be considered a hip-hop artist because maybe you think it's easier to become a well-known rapper than it is to become a well-respected rock musician, but the fact of the matter is, that is the lane you exist in, and you've been capitalizing off of it since you came into the industry. I would say most of the people who are criticizing Post Malone are extremely hypocritical in the sense that they allow other artists who happen to be black to get away with the exact same things using the genre while contributing nothing to it for their own personal benefit. And I'm definitely not trying to lessen the severity of the crime here, because there are many people who feel like if there are 35 people in the room and I'm a part of that 35, if they're all doing it, then I should be able to get away with it too. When in reality, you're all pretty shitty for doing it in the first place. I wouldn't necessarily call Post Malone a culture vulture if he came into the industry under a name that wasn't solely trying to be hip-hop but constantly pushed away the title of it. You're so clearly catering to this sound but constantly denying any claims that you are a part of it. And I wouldn't even call Post Malone a culture vulture if he accepted the fact that he wanted to come into the industry as a hip-hop artist and be acknowledged as a rapper, because he's definitely pioneering a sound right now that other people aren't necessarily doing. Justin Bieber was the exact same way in catering to sounds that were more R&B, hip-hop vibey, capitalizing that, gaining the attention of a lot of people who were hardcore hip-hop or R&B music heads, and then abandoning the sound once the popularity grew. Again, using the sound while contributing nothing to it. That's the point. Post Malone's new music video is a direct representation of that, and there's nothing wrong with it. Clearly, his video is the representation of some guy who's a rock star, meaning he feels like a badass now. He feels like the movies that he used to watch. He feels like those samurai that he used to watch on TV when he was younger, those kung fu movies. He feels like he's that guy now. It essentially ties into the whole Rockstar theme. I completely understand the point of the music video. You see somebody who's in a very high position or someone who's badass and you want to be that person, I understand. But he's clearly just having fun and doing nothing else. So all that combined are reasons why his comments in his recent interview are so, I guess, concerning. I'm just really shocked or surprised that a guy so clearly existing in the realm of hip-hop would degrade it to such a degree by making these statements. Now, while I don't agree with DJ Booth's reactionary way of posting this on Twitter, basically saying that Post Malone said that hip-hop isn't real, and using that kind of as their headline to get more clicks for it, is a little underhanded. It's clearly going to get you a different kind of perspective on the situation before even reading the article, and it's clearly going to get the artist who's saying these things more hate than he should. Because 9 times out of 10, most people are just going to look at the headline and say, yep, I knew it. Anyone who had a preconceived notion of Post Malone before the article came out is not going to look at it because of the way you post it. But once you actually do read the article, you can see that Post Malone says, if you're looking for lyrics, if you're looking to cry, if you're looking to think about life, don't listen to hip-hop. There's great hip-hop songs where they talk about life and they spit that real. But right now, there's not a lot of people talking about that real. Whenever I want to cry, whenever I want to sit down and have a nice cry, I'll listen to some Bob Dylan. Or whenever I'm trying to have a good time and stay in a positive mood, I listen to hip-hop because it's fun. I think hip-hop is important because it brings people together in a beautiful, happy way. You have a guy who's being accused of being a culture vulture saying you should steer clear of hip-hop because I exist in a lane that doesn't cater to the real shit that I'm requiring. You can't group an entire generation of music that exists within one genre as the exact same thing when you're participating in the exact same music that you're saying you can't look for if you're looking for that real. I do agree with him. There isn't a huge amount of what he's requiring or talking about specifically going on in the realm of hip-hop when we have artists that are plastered all over the XXL cover. However, you're completely writing off other artists because you don't do any research, or, you know, these comments generally come from people who generalize an entire genre without actually going deep into that genre and looking for something better. I mean, that is essentially how this hip-hop channel was created. I wanted to know more about the genre. I wanted to know more about anything that exists within it, and I was tired of listening to the pop rap. I was tired of listening to most of the things that I was hearing that was mainstream, so I did some searching. I said, hey, I'm gonna look for this, I'm gonna look for that. Hip-hop can be these things to someone who doesn't want to invest any time into it, but for someone who does and is actually interested, it could be a much more beautiful thing than you describe it as. I mean, you're completely writing off artists like Joey Badass, Big Crit, Kendrick, Rhapsody, J. Cole, Jid, Joyner Lucas, Denzel Curry, Open Mic, Clipping, all artists who've released projects recently or within the last couple years. So to say that you shouldn't come to hip-hop if you're looking for something that's going to trigger your emotion or your brain in some way, it's just a very vague and general statement to kind of cover up the fact that you exist within that realm and you'd like for everyone else to as well. I don't really think he meant to do this, but it comes across as if he's undermining the entire genre of music because he's making music that exists within the same realm that he's speaking of. Essentially placing someone like Bob Dylan so much further ahead of the entire genre of hip-hop by saying this is what I listen to when I really want to get emotion or when I really want to feel something special. All that does is tell me that you're listening to no one other than what's on the radio or what's mainstream or the rappers that you already have collaborated with or know personally. I hear the comment Tupac and Biggie were the best rappers generally from people who've listened to no other artists. I mean, he says it in the interview himself. There are people who are talking about life, who are talking about experiences, so why he would continue to, you know, group the entire genre into that space is beyond me. I think for most people it feels better for them to group everyone into the same classroom if they know they're participating in that classroom setting as well, in an attempt to avoid heavy criticism of Post Malone, as opposed to saying I'm just not hip-hop. What he decides to say is hip-hop in general isn't the place you should come to if you're looking for really good music, and narrows it down to almost saying that hip-hop is something that is just for fun. Just a horrible choice of wording. I don't think he was trying so desperately to be offensive. I just think for someone who clearly exists within that realm to just so carelessly speak about that genre, it just shows, you know, kind of the culture vulture behavior. Point being, Post Malone is essentially the word he detests so much, which is a vulture. Until he contributes something to the culture or you know, has a hand in the advancement of it, he can't really say what is and what isn't real within that same genre. It would be kind of like Charles Manson saying that the world needs to change. And not saying that Post Malone is anywhere near as bad as Charles Manson, but as far as hip-hop goers are concerned, he might be to them. But one thing I would like to add is that if Post Malone is not this rapper who is actually contributing to rap music, how much of the culture is he actually stealing? Just pretty much doing auto-tune crooning and harmonizing his voice. That's not what rap was intended for, or hip-hop in general. I don't say that he's a culture vulture just because he's pioneering a sound that I've indoctrinated. This sound needs to belong to us. We need to cherish it because it's fucking simple. The sound that he's pioneering isn't something that I think is easy to achieve, but it's not a sound that I think that hip-hop deserves so much that it should only belong to hip-hop or rap, because that's not what it was built off of. It was built off of the lyrics, the storytelling ability, the metaphors, how you can connect to people through your voice, with your words. So to say Post Malone is a culture vulture, and to also say you hate his music, would be you essentially saying that you hate what hip-hop is. Post Malone is a pop rapper, okay? So if he's stealing pieces of hip-hop to incorporate into his sound, you can say that. But to say that his whole sound and the way he does music is a direct rip-off of rap or what you perceive to be real rap or hip-hop, then you'd be lying to yourself, or you'd be very misinformed. But not lessening the severity, there are other rappers who also exist within this realm. There are other rappers who've existed in the past within the culture vulture realm. Do you know the amount of NWA clones there were after the group made their debut? Are you If you're gonna say that rap is this thing that's so authentic that no one other than the few that you've mentioned are culture vultures, you'd just be lying to yourself, okay? Rap is that. Rap is a thing that artists have found success in from taking from their predecessors. Success in taking from the most pleasing sounds from within the genre that they could find. Even if they make their own originality based off of a sound that they found in the past, it's still a sound that they found in the past. They find the most pleasing aspects of other music and indoctrinate it into their sound. Look at Jaden Smith, okay? Dude came out with an album that is directly inspired from Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Childish Gambino, Tyler the Creator. Directly influenced, and no one is saying anything about it. So the bigger point in this video isn't that Post Malone is a culture vulture. It's that if you're gonna call him one, you kinda have to call everyone else one too. But I'm gonna pull a Post Malone here and say not everyone, just specific people who exist outside of that reality. If you think originality is something that exists to just the few people you listen to or the ones you hold to a very high regard, you're not listening realistically, or you're just not being objective, or you have very selective hearing. Every artist starts out with a blueprint or inspiration from another artist, okay? Half of the rappers we have right now wouldn't exist without the rappers we had before them. Why do you think that is? These other artists were inspired by them. But let me know how you guys felt about this Post Malone thing. Were you surprised at any of his comments? And does this concern you? Are you gonna buy the album? Are you gonna enjoy it? You know you're gonna do it. You know you're gonna buy the album. You know you're gonna. It's Shawn C. Thank you all for watching. And I'm I thought it was gonna land on that cushion over there. It didn't. I'm scared. But I'll let you know what happened to the phone in the next video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.